So today we're talking about cooking for gut health. And what does that mean? A variety of things, actually. Cooking for gut health is definitely introducing pre and probiotics, which I think a lot of people hear those terms and associate them with the gut, but don't necessarily know what those are. So today, hopefully, we'll introduce those to some of you, remind others, as well as to show you how easy it can be to fit those in. Another thing too is fermented foods. So those definitely are a great source of probiotics, and making sure that we get different strains of those into our body is important. So we'll talk about fermented foods. And then dietary fiber is huge. So fruits and vegetables. A bunch of fiber helps to fuel the bacteria, and they're a form of prebiotics, really. So whether they're pickled or not, a bunch of different fruits and vegetables of all kinds is really important to nourishing that gut health. And then finally, simple sugars feed the bad bacteria. So while we're cooking for gut health, we also want to be aware of foods that can damage that bacteria, the microbiome that we do have in our body. So avoiding processed foods, which often include simple sugars, even white breads, white rice, they can also damage that microbiome and the healthy bacteria. So including a variety of high fiber foods, but also the foods that we mentioned today. And if you look on your handout, it talks about types of different pro and prebiotics. Prebiotics is one of the first ones we'll get into. And prebiotics include leeks, asparagus, artichoke, garlic, onions, whole wheat, bananas, soybeans, honey, almonds, oatmeal, and legumes. So I know when I first started learning about prebiotics, I thought, wait a minute, I thought that would just be, really out there kind of things. But no, prebiotics are found in a variety of foods. And so we'll get started with our first demo to show you.
Yeah, sounds good. And some of the reasons to focus on gut health in the kitchen, a lot of times we're kind of wondering why to focus on gut health, but supporting your immune system is one of them. The gut is mostly housed in our immune system, and a healthy gut can help your immune system response. There's also looking at energy, digestive health, and there's even research that shows healthy weight is related to a healthy gut and a healthy balance in your gut microbiome. So all of those pieces that Wendy went over are how to kind of support that gut health in the kitchen. And maybe those were the reasons why you would want to do that. Like Wendy said, we sent you all the handouts. So if you go into your meeting event, you can pull up that attachment. And we're going to start off with talking a little bit about prebiotics. So you've got the little list of prebiotics, leeks, asparagus, artichokes, garlic and onion, whole wheat, bananas, soybeans, honey, almonds, oatmeal, and other legumes. So we've got a dish here, the lentils and leeks, that have legumes, garlic, onion, and leeks. So it's a really probiotic heavy dish. This is based on Ina Garten's recipe. She's the Barefoot Contessa, and it's one that I've repeated over the years many times. I've got it going because it does take about 30 minutes for those lentils to simmer. So what I've done so far is sauteed the onions and leeks, soaked the lentils before we put them in there. That cut the cooking time down a little bit. So now they're kind of simmering in some broth with some herbs, carrots, and a bit of tomato paste. Before I dive into the leek, I just wanted to go over what type of tomato paste I generally keep on hand at home. It's the super concentrated, I'll show you over here. It's the super concentrated tomato paste. There's usually a couple brands at the grocery store. It comes in a box. And I love it because it sits in your fridge for 3 weeks, and it's double concentrated compared to what's found in the can. So it can add quite a bit of flavor to soups, whole grains. I'll use it when I'm making like a taco bowl. So this is a really great product to have on hand. Okay, so getting into the leek. Yeah, if you want to swing that over. We're getting fancy today. So we've got our leeks on the stove here. Actually, we want to do cutting the leek. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay, so this is a leek here. This is a very large leek. They don't always come this big. It's basically a giant green onion. The most challenging thing with leeks is that dirt gets embedded between these layers. So in order to cut it and clean it, you do need to know how to do that. So I'm going to put these. Okay. So we need to go over that today. So you take the root end, slice about 1 inch off of that root end. These rough, kind of rubbery parts of the leaves, you're not going to want to use those. It gets a lot more tender inside. I'm sure a chef would tell you that this is wrong, but I typically cut the tops off like this because it gets most of that kind of rough, rubbery, you know, that's the parts of the leaves that are not very tender, gets those right off of there. So this is where, before you wash it, you need to slice it in half lengthwise. So we're gonna take our knife, like I said, this is a very large leek. This is the smallest they have in the store. So we're cutting it in half lengthwise. So what I wanted to show you is these layers that they get dirt packed in there. So what we do is take the water and run it through the cut side of the leek. So I'm just gonna do that over here real quick. Try to see. Shake that out. But so that, okay, here, yeah, here you can see in the layers there how that dirt gets packed in. From there, you've got your washed leeks. Place it cut side down, and you can essentially, to make this dish, run your knife this way, just like you're cutting celery, and push your knife forward, just as a reminder for cutting skills, kind of slice that all up. Oh, they're bouncy, I guess. All right, so I've already done that to cut the leeks into this dish. Use these again for something else, but leeks are great to add to any whole grain, you know, dish, any stir fry, anything. They have a slight onion flavor, but they're full of those prebiotics. So now you know how to use a leek. If you get them from the farmer's market, they're even dirtier, so you might want to really get that water running through them, or you'll have a crunchy dish. Okay, so I'm gonna maybe have you do something with those while I keep talking about this dish. Okay, so as we finish the lentils here, these have been boiling for about 20 minutes. I don't measure when I cook, so I might have to add a bit more broth. But it did use one of the tactics that I really like for flavoring whole grains, which is that tomato paste. Other things that you can do are, you know, get your garlic going in there. Make sure you sear the garlic before you add your broth and the lentils so you get that flavor going. And then the last kind of step of this is to add some vinegar, which sounds a little bit weird, but it brightens the flavor. And you can do this with quinoa dishes. I'll do that with Spanish rice. Usually the lighter vinegars go better. If it is more of a harvest flavored dish, you can do apple cider, but I usually stick to red wine vinegar. Just add about a tablespoon to your grains. I don't, like I said, measure anything. Yeah, so that is going to be your grain there, and I want you guys to be able to see this dish. So I added a whole entire leek. Can you see that over here? No. Here. All right, so there we go. So I added a whole entire leek to this dish. Are we fogging? Yeah, there we go. And it cooks right down. So if you're unsure about adding it to a soup, you don't need a lot more room in the pan. Feel free to start with half, but it really does cook down. You still have that fiber in there, a lot of added nutrition. A lot of people don't think about leeks, garlic, and onion as nutrition contributors, but they definitely are getting those probiotics. So, okay, I think that's it on this dish. I'm gonna pull up the comments so we can just make sure to see here anything. Okay, good question, Sue. What kind of lentils? So there are typically red and green lentils. This recipe calls for green. You could use red. Red just cook quicker than green. They're a little bit of a softer lentil. So I'll get the ones I used here. Yeah. So these ones were just marked as lentils. So you kind of see that in there, and they do like have a more of a green or brown tinge to them compared to the red ones. Okay, I think we are going to move on to talking about probiotics a little bit now. This dish is definitely chock full of prebiotics, but we would just encourage you to take that list of prebiotics, see where you can add those foods to what you're already cooking to ramp up the fiber, and you're essentially giving your probiotics that you already have in your gut that fuel so that they can survive. Wendy's going to start with a dish that uses a food high in probiotics. Probiotics are found in fermented foods like yogurt, kefir. There are, fermented cabbages like kimchi and sauerkraut. We also find it in kombucha, which is a fermented tea, as well as tempeh and miso, which are fermented soy products. So all of these are high in your probiotics, and Wendy's gonna kick us off with the next dish.
All right, so this one is the lettuce wraps, which you do have, again, a recipe on the handout Sarah sent out. And I'm not going to promote any specific restaurant, but there's a particular one on East Beltline that opened up across from the Celebration Cinema a couple years ago. And I went there at least 10 years ago in a different city, and I just loved their lettuce wraps. It was delicious. So I was really excited to share this today. But it's a really simple dish. You can use it as an appetizer. You can use it as a side, with a meal. But it has something called kimchi, and kimchi is pickled cabbage. This is how it comes in the store. This is how we purchased it. So if you can see the label there, actually there's the screen. But what you do, it just, it's got it on the recipe there. This had 2 tablespoons of toasted sesame oil, a cup of onion diced, a pound of chicken diced, or you can use 15 ounces of chickpeas. So again, those legumes. 2 cloves of garlic, so the garlic shows up again. Low sodium soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, again with the vinegar, sriracha, great spicy flavor added to this, teaspoon of ginger, and then a dash of red pepper flakes. And I think, most people, hopefully, when they see a recipe like that, if you've got certain things that strike you and jump out, add a little bit more, Don't be afraid to kind of, be an adventurous cook. The ginger, the pepper, and the sriracha, I definitely would go a little bit heavy on, when I make this. So just to show you what we've got here, it doesn't have to be a fancy lettuce. This, we've just got romaine lettuce. So when you tear that romaine off the actual stem, I guess it would be.
Of romaine?
Yeah, at the head, there you go. You get a pretty big piece. Then we've got smaller ones. Typically you want to get the lettuce all the way down the stem. So, a piece like this, maybe I would just use the top half. But you just take it and then you add whatever you'd like. Again, we've got the chicken dish that I just went through with the ingredients. So I'm definitely going to put it, on my lettuce. And I'm already spilling a little bit there, but hey, that's all what today's about. We're not perfect. So I got a little bit of chicken, and then we've got slivered almonds here. Commonly, nuts are used. You could use a variety of different, nuts that maybe you have at home, or, kind of experiment a bit. Carrots, again, we mentioned fiber. So we've got all of these vegetables here to show you the different types of fiber. Cucumbers again, so just kind of tucking those in there. And then finishing it off with green onion. So you've got that. And then the final added ingredient, which is what I had just mentioned, is this kimchi. And it's different. It's got a different, again, I'll show you up close. It's kind of got a different mouthfeel. It definitely, is reminiscent of what something that is pickled would taste like, the pickled cabbage in here. But it's got a lot of great flavor. And so basically, you just do your best to pinch it. If it's a really big piece of romaine, and depending on how you put it together, you can actually roll it this way. But I kind of like to pinch it almost like a taco and then just enjoy. So it all depends on how well and how steady your hand is at the time. But it's a delicious dish. Again, you've got a variety of things in there. You've got the nuts, you've got some protein, you've got the chicken, or if you want to use lentils, the vegetables. And any way you can add kimchi to dishes, it's another great way to get that probiotic again. Examples of probiotics: yogurt, kefir, unpasteurized pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, tempeh, some vinegars, and some cheeses. So again, we're constantly showing you kind of recipes that even use those in different ways. So this is all about being creative, but trying to encourage that gut health. And I'll take it to Sarah.
Yeah, and I will maybe just add a couple things on, the filling for lettuce wraps. This chicken I pulled it from the freezer last night because I didn't want to have to cook one more thing for this class, and it was just a cooked grilled chicken breast, which I froze whole. Let it thaw overnight, chop it up, kind of shred it, and it's done. So this was very quick. If you don't want to have that meat-based dish, Wendy mentioned the chickpeas. You could also do it with an extra firm tofu if you experiment with that at all, where you squeeze that liquid out and then it's a bit more crumbly. Or we mentioned tempeh being probiotics. That's a crumbly fermented soy. So that would actually go in here as well. To change the texture, I'd probably do both chickpeas and tempeh, just so it's a little bit, has more of a bite to it. Yeah. Anything else?
No, that sounds good.
No.
On that note too, Sarah's gracious enough to share her kitchen. That's where we are today.
Yeah.
And so she did fall into having a lot of these ingredients from her fridge and cupboard
Okay.
as what we used. So hopefully if these cooking classes are well received, we'd love to do more. We're good friends as well as coworkers. So it's just another opportunity for us to get together.
That's right. Okay, so we're going to shift gears again. We've got 2 more kind of tips and recipes to show you. We're going to start with pickling, which this is going to be a heavy tray. So I've got the metal one. Put this over here. Okay. Wish we could cue some music or something here.
Right, where's your Alexa?
I should not. She doesn't live with me.
No, she doesn't.
Okay, so pickling. What do I want to do first? So this is called quick pickling at home. It's not a heat-based canning method. So if you've never done any kind of canning, this is a very easy introduction to it. And I often, like, I'm using mason jars today, but I'll often just use one of these Rubbermaid containers. You know, it doesn't have to be a fancy container. You really just need the brine, the vegetables, and a little bit of time. So I'm gonna get the brine going on the stovetop here first. It's essentially water and vinegar and then a couple little additions. Here's my recipe. Okay, so we need 1.5 cups of liquid, and it does not have to be precise. So I've got about 1/2 cup of water. I'm gonna do 1/2 cup of the white vinegar. And I'm glad I bought this one because my other option was that one from Costco that I use for cleaning and stuff. It's a huge jug.
I had that too, and I was gonna bring it.
Yeah. And I'm using 1/2 cup of this apple cider vinegar. So this vinegar here is a raw, unfiltered vinegar. It has what's called the mother in it. So if you let this sit, you'll actually get, you know, some sediment at the bottom. Just kind of shake it around. But this is the type of vinegar that does have probiotics in it. And I like the 2 vinegars as well. It gives it a little bit more of a complex flavor once you are kind of enjoying that pickled dish.
And I just want to point out too, Sarah's putting all these liquids in 1 2-cup measure. So what a great, easy kitchen hack right there. They kind of mix together as she pours, but also she doesn't have to keep, you know.
Yeah, you're not like, I do this a lot with liquid, especially dishes like, this is why I'm a horrible baker, because I don't like to measure, but you don't have to, you know, measure the precise in the 1/2 cup measuring cup spilling on your stove as you kind of bring it over. So yeah, that's a good point. I always do that when I look at recipes. How can I mix or measure anything in the same bowl that I'm mixing or serving in to just try to decrease the dishes that you create? So I'm gonna get the stove on here, kind of get that going. Okay, now let's kind of get the jars ready. This is essentially just to heat the honey and salt once we put that in there. So I'm just gonna get that started. I decided to do cucumbers and red cabbage for pickling today. Mostly because this is like my dinners for the week, right? But I wanted to show the mandolin slicer. This is something that you don't absolutely have to have, but it is nice when you're trying to kind of cut a lot of really skinny pieces of produce. I'll use this for zucchini, for sweet potatoes, kind of I'm gonna do sweet potato chips, cucumbers, even, you know, celery. Just, this is the thing I cut my hand on the most though. It's just one of those that gets you. So you just slide your produce item down the way and you get these discs. You can change the thickness of them, but wanted to show that quickly with the mandolin slicer. That's probably all that fits in there. You can kind of really push the produce right in there. You don't have to do all one kind either. You can mix you know, mixed produce items. You could do cucumbers and red peppers. I like doing cucumber and onion, actually. Pickled onion is one of my favorites. And then, let's see, we're going to do the cabbage. I didn't cut this yet because I was thinking maybe, no, you know, we might have some people that have never cut an entire head of cabbage. I'm not going to use this whole thing. This cabbage is probably 4 cups cut, you know, once it all kind of fluffs up. But we're going to cut this today. I'm going to use the rest of it in like a chopped Asian salad with a peanut sauce in a couple days. Where did that go?
Oh, that's right.
Oh, right here. Okay. All right. So some people like to core the end of this out right away. I find the knife to be a little bit too unsteady for me. I like to cut it in half first. So that just feels a little better for me. And then I can see exactly where the stem is. So from here, I'm going to take and kind of cut a triangle to pop that stem out. And that way, because it's kind of bitter and just it's pretty tough. I'm probably not going to do that on this side actually, so I'll just use this for pickling. So I'm going to leave that in there to store. So I'm going to use that in the chopped salad in a couple days here. That's what I like about this too. This cabbage would be good next week. I mean, it can sit in your fridge. So if you are meal planning and you buy asparagus one week, you can then use this the next week. Any questions for now?
We just had someone that, Greg, commented he pickles red onions, asparagus, beans, cucumbers, and radishes at different times of the year.
Fantastic.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so we're just slicing really thin. It doesn't have to be, anything too uniform. Once we get here, these are getting into bigger pieces, which I don't like to have those on my dish, so I'm gonna do it half, cut it half so it's a little bit smaller. Keep going here. All right, that's probably enough. All right, so why I like to, well, here, I might just do it the way I normally do it. Trying to be cute with that jar, but look at your target here. It's annoying to stuff it in there, so I just don't.
You don't need glass, that's good.
Yeah, so yeah, pop that into that dish. Mason jar, it goes away. Okay, so we're ready with our vegetables here and here. Get this out of the way, got the lids. All right, with our brine, we're gonna add a little bit of salt and sugar. I like to do a honey so that it is a natural form of sugar and a very, very little bit. We just heard it's not great for gut health, right? American Heart Association says 6 teaspoons a day for women and 9 teaspoons of added sugar a day for men. So I'm gonna do about a half teaspoon of salt is all. That helps kind of get that fermentation process going, and then a giant jar of honey. So do about a tablespoon of honey. Wash my hands now. Okay, from here, it's a little bit up to you. I've got a couple options of what you can add. I'll kind of show you what I like to add. You can do whole peppercorns to kind of give it, which camera are we doing? You can do whole peppercorns to kind of give it a little bit more of that spicy, flavor. They also have a pickling spice. This one is a little strong for me because I don't like pickles, but I like this stuff. So this one's a little strong. I go easy on it, but if you love pickles, this is going to add a lot more flavor. I like bay leaves. That's a great one to add, to get a little bit more of that herby flavor. Or you can do whole garlic cloves, which I'm probably going to do whole garlic clove in with the pickled cabbage just to give it a little more flavor there.
We've got a comment from Rhonda asking if cooking vegan, what sweetener can be used instead of honey?
Yeah, so maple syrup would give it a real depth of flavor, or you could use agave nectar would be the 2 that I would choose. You can just use straight processed sugar as well, but the other 2 are going to be the natural sugar or sweetener. And you just need a little bit. It takes the edge off of kind of what that, because the vinegar can kind of hit you in the taste buds. Okay, so whole garlic clove, I'm just throwing it in there. What I used here is a little silicone garlic peeler. It's one of the only kitchen utensils I have that's only for garlic, but it's super cheap. I use it all the time, and it's nice because you get this whole peeled garlic clove that you didn't crush. So I'm just gonna throw that in there. Check on that honey here. Okay. I thought for a second I didn't turn this on. Okay, it is on. Okay, that is all dissolved. Like I said, I'm not doing too much there, just dissolving it. We'll turn that off, and from here you just pour the brine on without a bunch of bottles in your way.
Let me get that out.
Like, this is gonna be a hard enough task to do in front of people. Okay, so pour slowly right over the vegetables. Probably will need a little more for this amount of cabbage. That's what you get for not measuring. Or you can just shake it every few hours. I mean, it ends up kind of condensing down. So I won't add more to that. I'll just let it stir over the next day or two. So yeah, just put your lid on, put this lid on here, and that's about it. You can get a lot fancier with this by adding, your peppercorns, your jalapenos, but this is just kind of your basic. That's how I like it. Okay, now we're talking yogurt.
Yeah.
That's next.
Okay.
Well, let's maybe talk about what we can put these on. You can obviously just eat them, but pickled vegetables are really great as condiments. So we talk a lot about grain bowls, where I was thinking when you're making the lettuce wrap that you could kind of turn that into a grain bowl if you did, have your chicken, but then put it on a base of like a long grain rice with chickpeas. In the bottom of your bowl, put your chicken on, then all those toppings, and you could top with the kimchi or this cabbage. They're great in tacos, like with corn tortillas, wraps. What do you put them on?
The biggest thing that we'll put them on is fajitas and tacos and salads. And my daughter's been great with, Mom, we need more color. So, you typically don't even think purple when you have the dishes I just mentioned. So the cabbage is a great addition, and it's not a super strong flavor, but that crunch is amazing. And it just gives it a little extra kick.
Yeah. Oh, I did after going to a local restaurant. They had pickled radishes on top of their guacamole. I tried twice to do the pickled radishes. They came out like dirt. So if anybody has tips on pickling radishes, please holler. But I won second place in a guacamole contest with pickled red onions on top of my guacamole. So it's really great with kind of those stronger flavors. Okay, nice. So we're switching to some yogurt.
Yes, so we're on to yogurt now. I gotta tell you, a lot of people that I've been talking to with these health consultations. Sarah and I are kind of right in the middle of the HSA consultations, and a lot of you get those, yellow, red, and green circles that we typically like to address. And vegetable intake is commonly low and for many people. And so I'll talk to people about fresh vegetables. That's always a great one. They're typically the highest source of fiber. Frozen vegetables, very similar, but you're not going to get that crisp taste that you would get with the fresh vegetables. So that's a great way to get that, nice flavor of the whole food of the fresh vegetables. But anyways, I inevitably will hear, well, yeah, I don't really like the taste of that either. So Greek yogurt is so versatile. Plain Greek yogurt is what we're working with today. Plain Greek yogurt is a little more sour than your regular yogurt, so it's a fantastic substitution for things maybe that you've grown up using sour cream for, or even as a substitution for maybe savory additions in some of your baked goods. So that plain Greek yogurt you can use in a lot of different ways, and the handout you've got talks about even tzatziki, which is a great sauce you can add. We've got the recipe there. You have to use a cucumber for that, some lemon juice, white vinegar again, fresh dill, minced garlic, and that's a great, again, condiment sauce to put on a lot of different things. That's a great thing on gyros that typically a lot of Greek dishes. But what I commonly tell people with the fresh vegetable avoidance, let's say, is to make a Greek yogurt dip. And honestly, I like this so much that I almost have the vegetables as an excuse to have the dip because I think it's delicious. So the recipe, again, you've got on there. So it's I'll go in order of the recipe. I already put in here garlic powder and onion powder, and I didn't measure it either because I don't tend to measure when it comes to dips especially. But you think about your French onion dips, that's a lot of that onion flavor. So, don't hesitate to go maybe a little heavier on the onion dip, and most of us like the garlic. And then next, the dry dill. I think this makes it. So while the recipe calls for a half teaspoon, I'm definitely going to go all in here with a lot of dill. And then again, once I mix this all up, I'll taste it and we'll see what needs to be adjusted a little bit. And then another big one is the Worcestershire sauce. I think of this Scooby-Doo episode. I don't know where they try to pronounce it and they never can. But anyway, on this one, it says 1/4 teaspoon. So again, I'm going to go a little bit more. One thing with that is it does add a flavor to it that's just a little more unique. It's not like soy sauce. It's different. It's a little sweeter. It's something that needs to be refrigerated where your soy sauce doesn't need to be refrigerated.
Which if you don't have that, you could use a low sodium soy sauce, or you could even do sriracha for a little bit of a kick if you didn't have, because I don't ever have.
That's a great
I
idea.
only buy that if I'm gonna make like my grandma's roast beef in the oven, so I might have it in the winter. But yeah, so it's not a staple. So if, you can kind of change it up a little bit. Yeah, that does give it that unique, what is that, umami? Is that the flavor profile?
Yeah, exactly. So, I have it mostly, the great thing, another tip here, the great thing about glass dishes is you can tell if you've mixed it well. You can see where I haven't. So I can go back and this is not really a spoon, it's more of a scraper, which is great to kind of mix it as well as get it off the sides. But I think it's delicious. Again, try it yourself and see what you'd like to add more or less of. I did not put any salt in, that's part of the recipe. I typically would rather go heavier on maybe the garlic powder or the dill, but that's my preference. Going easy on the salt when you can is always helpful. I love the crunch of celery and bell peppers. Andy Bix, I think, is still on here, and I'm always having those for lunch. He makes fun of me, but I think they're delicious too. But carrots, cucumbers, any way you can get a variety of fresh vegetables, as well as the Greek yogurt, which is a great source of protein and calcium. So it's another benefit there too, is you're getting more than just the vegetables. You're getting a delicious addition to your needs for the day. Another thing on here is chocolate fruit dip. So you can actually, with the yogurt, that honey, add that in there with some cocoa powder, a little vanilla, and a pinch of cinnamon. And again, with those ingredients I listed, maybe go a little bit more or a little bit less. I've also got peanut butter powder, and sometimes I'll add that to the yogurt just for a different flavor. So again, added sugars is in so many things, especially in your flavored yogurts that you might see individually packaged in the grocery store. So we want to cut down on those added sugars when we can. And adding fresh fruit to yogurt, say a parfait, finding ways to use plain yogurt, but kind of doctor it up, so to speak, to meet your preferences and your flavor profiles. Is a great way to go.
Yeah, I just did the other night. I don't know why I didn't think about this for our list, but was having like a taco bowl type thing and wanted something on top of it. And I did the plain Greek yogurt with cumin, chili powder, lime juice, and I had half of an avocado. So I just did that up with the immersion blender or a stick, stick blender. It was so good.
That's another great example, like the avocado mayo you'll see places.
Yeah.
Make it with Greek yogurt instead. Any of those types of dishes, ranch dressings, add maybe a little bit of milk or milk substitute to thin it out. But it's a very, very versatile dish that, as well as being a probiotic too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so any last questions on there before we kind of wrap up? I don't think so. We are going to record this and send it out. You have your handouts. But yeah, just to kind of wrap back around, we've got prebiotics as a separate, focus to probiotics. So probiotics I think are a little bit more well known. So hopefully, get one of those takeaways, reduce sugar and processed foods.
Increase fiber.
And increase fiber. So that's kind of cooking for gut health. Hopefully you have a few good new recipes. This lentil dish I always serve with salmon, just a side note. It's really good with a seared salmon. So yeah, give us any sort of feedback via email, and I think we'll be doing it again in September with the Health Expo Week. Good question. How long do the pickled vegetables last in the refrigerator? I'll get 2 weeks out of them. I also kind of throw more vegetables into the same brine sometimes. So if I have, pickled cabbage and I just have some extra onion that I don't really want to save for another dish, I'll just throw them right back into that same container. So plan on about 2 weeks on those. And usually don't last that long, but they're, give them at least a day. But the 3 days is probably, I think, ideal, but you can eat them after 30 minutes. I mean, but they're just not going to be like fully
Seasoned.
Yeah. Yes. So, all right. Well, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I hope you learned something here today. There's a variety of types of foods, but also ways to prepare them. And that's, I think, our overall goal, with not only with these classes, but whenever we talk to people, is we want you to choose a variety of nutrient-dense whole foods, but sometimes there's a barrier with how to make that happen. So,
Cool. All right. Well, hope you have a great day.